everybody. Welcome back after the break. I hope you are with us. You can see people joining. For those who have not participated in the previous session, my name is Justyna and I'm the conference moderator today. We've got 4 more sessions today, and before I introduce our next speaker, I wanted to remind you that there'll be time for questions at the end of each session, so you are invited to put them into the chat box whenever you feel comfortable. I will moderate the questions towards the end of the presentation to get the answers, and please make sure that you send them to all participants and panelists so that everybody can see them. And our next special guest is Alastair Creelman from Linnaeus University in Sweden, who is a specialist in the field of online and distance education based in the section for higher education development. Alastair monitors developments in the field and is active in several national and international projects in areas such as distance online learning, quality questions, open educational resources, social media in education, and virtual mobility, global classroom. And in this session, you will learn how to develop online teaching from simple content delivery to collaborative learning and co-creation. You will hear the examples of how to foster a sense of community in the classes and how to foster socialization between students. This should help to reduce the feeling of distance and isolation that many students feel today. So I think we are all impatient to hear from you, Alastair, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice to be with you all. I see all sorts of places coming online here on the chat. Hello, Lithuania, Lvov in Ukraine, and so on. It's nice to see everybody. I'm here in southeast Sweden, in the corner on the Baltic coast, and at the moment we have wet snow flying around in the air, and it's pretty awful. I'm glad I'm inside. Okay, I'm going to get started, and I will share my screen and we'll be up and running. Here we go. This is the topic for today. Call it presence at a distance and building a sense of community in online education. And that's really what we're all trying to do. As we have done in campus, we need to create it in online. So the story so far, splash. We all know what happened 1 year ago, almost exactly 1 year ago. We were all put into the online swimming pool. Some of us could swim very well. Some of us could swim quite well. Some of us had to learn how to swim very quickly. But I think in general, the transition went surprisingly well in many countries, not in all countries. But it all depends on a lot of factors. We're not going to talk about COVID so much today, but I'd just like to give you some responses from a student survey in the UK that is very fresh indeed, what they thought about it all. And they gave a number of tips. I'll just click them forward so that you can see. It's from the organization JISC, who sort of coordinate efforts in the digitalization of UK higher education. Getting the basics right, just getting the connectivity, getting things to work, the scheduling, that's important. They want more interactive sessions. That's what we're going to talk about. They want recordings to be available soon. They want digital skills training for teachers, incredibly important. They want shorter input, frequent breaks, opportunities, social opportunities, opportunities to talk more informally, and better communication in general. These are just some tips from the students. There were more, but these are major ones. But I'd like to move into really how can we create this engagement online. And rather than me immediately going on and giving my side of things, I'd like to know what you think. And I'd like you to go to menti.com and put in that code. I'm going to give you a link in the chat. Just a second. There is a link in the chat, and that's easier to click on, and you can just vote there. How do you create engagement in your online classes? Just write a short few words as an answer, and we'll see what comes in. If you've got a mobile beside you, you go to menti.com, and there's this code that it's the bottom, 79714186. So either use your mobile or use the direct link in the chat. And I will now switch to showing you what is happening on the net. Just a second. Pets, exactly. You just put a cat on the keyboard and you have engagement instantly, don't you? Polls, use of interactive tools, Mentimeter as we're using right now, Padlets, oh great, you're talking my language here. Some of the breakout groups, collaborative platforms, quizzes, Miro is a good way. There's lots of tools out there, team discussions, chats, group work, breaks, questions to individual students. You need to sort of make a clear statement. You need to point to them and ask them to respond, tell a joke, group work in breakouts, practical exercises, small talk. Yes, I'm coming to that. We need more small talk. Yeah, here's show your pet. That's becoming quite a popular, that's trending. Breakout rooms, synchronous meetings, many questions on Menti. Unmuted microphones, great. Breakout. Oh, really, goodness me, thank you. 120 responses and counting. There's sites like Nearpod. Have to check that out. I don't know that one. Kahoot, using Mentimeter. Yep. Loads of great suggestions here. And actually, I'm going to talk about all these things, I hope, or most of them. So maybe I'm telling you things that you already know. Maybe, I will give you access to this questionnaire so you can look at the answers in your own time very soon. Just a second. I'll get back to you on that, and I will now switch back to the PowerPoint. So let's look a little bit at course design, course redesign, because we need to redesign our courses. We need to redesign them for online. And I mean, not just now, I mean when we get back to campus. When we get back to campus, we have to redesign our courses so that the online option is already there, that we think about online delivery in all our courses from now on. And that's not just because there might be another pandemic, there might be another emergency. We don't know what's going to happen in the world today. But it's also because we can see today that the online space has a lot of advantages that we can use when we are back on campus. So we need to design online from the start with campus as the, campus can be there, but we need that online space as well. Number one is not a technical point, it's about enthusiasm. If a teacher is enthusiastic and knowledgeable, but can convey their commitment to their subject and their expertise and get the students excited, I think that's half of the battle. Lots of students will forgive you if your technology is not perfect, if it's not a Hollywood production in your videos. But if you've got that spark of enthusiasm, if you show that this is important, I think they'll get inspired. Managing expectations. We need to make it clear to the students what sort of course this is going to be. We often assume that they understand, and they don't always do that. If your course is very collaborative, make that clear from the very beginning. This is a collaborative course. We expect you to do this, 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 and this. We need to spell out very clearly before they start the course what we expect of the student and what the student can expect of us, and how we're going to work. We need to build a community rather than just a course. They're not just a group of people who are studying to get good grades. They are a group of people who need to help each other. They need to learn together. They need to learn to collaborate, because that is a vital skill in the workplace today. They need activity and variation in the course. We need to combine synchronous with asynchronous teaching, of course. And we need to provide regular feedback and much more formative assessment than the traditional summative final exam assessment that we've grown up with. A couple of books that you can click on. I hope you've got the link to this slideshow already in the chat. Kasia, if you could repeat the link there for this slideshow, so you can go and click on these links later on. We need to recognize that there are different spaces for learning. There are synchronous spaces like this. They could even be a chat room where we have synchronous chat sessions. But the problem with synchronous sessions, both in the classroom and online, is who is excluded. What people cannot come to the synchronous session and what happens with them. What about people with different kinds of disabilities who might not be able to follow a synchronous session so well, people who don't have the bandwidth or the devices to follow? How do we deal with that? Synchronous sessions are not always the best places to meet. We can meet instead asynchronously in the form of discussion forums and collaborative documents, storyboards like Miro and Padlet, mind maps, collaborative mind maps. If we work asynchronously much more, everyone has time to contribute in their own way. Some will write, some will speak, some will do videos, some might do even more creative ways of contributing. But everyone has time to reflect and think before they contribute. In the synchronous session, it's the noisy ones who contribute and the people who can think fast and express themselves well. And that is only a minority of your students. This comes from Diane Laurillard's book, Teaching as a Design Science, and it's really about getting the right blend in course design. I think a lot of the time when we talk about blended learning, we think of mixing online with classroom, but I think blended learning is much more than that. It's getting the right blend of activities in the course, whether it's online or in the classroom. And what mix do you have in your course between acquisition, investigation, discussion, collaboration, practice, and production? You don't have to have exact same balance. Some courses in first year have a lot of acquisition, a lot of listening and reading and observing. It has to be like that. But you can also put in some investigation, some practice, some production. So you look at each course and think, what mix do we need on this course? And make sure that they get a wider experience than just listening and reading. The students in that UK survey and in several other surveys I've seen, in Sweden and Norway as well, I've seen reports. This is what they've lacked. They've been quite happy with the online teaching, but they're not so happy with this lack of social contacts. We need to see each other and we need to discuss. That's one of the great advantages of being on campus, is meeting your friends and meeting new friends and networking and discussing. Getting that sense of community is not so easy in an online environment, but there are many ways to try to do it. If possible, try to agree on a time for a pre-meeting. That don't just start your meeting instantly by going into the content. Try to say I'll open the meeting room half an hour before we start. You're welcome to join. You can test your audio and video. We can chat with each other. We can just talk about the weather or whatever. You could even create breakout groups to do a little bit of speed dating where you'd put them into groups of 3 or 4 and they just talk as they would when they're standing outside the door of your classroom. Try and get ice-breaking activities. Don't expect them to start collaborating straight away. They need to warm up. They need to get to know each other. And if you're going to get them into small groups, give them a trivial activity first in that group before you give them a real activity later on. It gives them time to say, who are you and where are you from? And get some ideas together. Give short breaks, leg stretching time. We all need it. Also remember, between your meetings, between your classes, you as a teacher need a break. Make sure you don't put one meeting instantly after a previous meeting. Give yourself time in your mind to do that walk between one meeting room and the other. Have a post-meeting discussion. You could let the meeting room be open for another half an hour. You could do other things. You could actually be multitasking or go off to another meeting. But if you can leave that room open where they can just talk to each other and then the meeting closes. You can offer drop-in sessions for chit-chat, for questions, whatever, but time when people can get together. With involvement, check how they're doing regularly. How are you doing at the moment? Goodness me, I can see there are 516 people in this meeting. That makes me rather nervous. I'm just checking on the, how do you offer drop-in sessions, asks Claudia. Well, basically set up a Zoom meeting or any other tool you happen to use for that. Tell people that between 11 and 12 o'clock on Thursday, I'll open this meeting, just drop in and say hi. I can answer questions. It's a sort of clinic time. Depends on the size of the class. It's not good if 100 people drop in, but if there are maybe 10 to 20 who drop in, then you can quite easily have a nice discussion informally. You don't have to prepare anything at all. Brainstorming in a chat can be a little easy thing. It's called a chat fall. We can try that. That would be really interesting with 516 people here. What you do is you say, I'm going to ask you a question and I'm going to wait. I want you to write your answer in the chat, but I don't want you to press the return button yet. So we could try this. Could you write in the chat your favorite your favorite tool for education, your favorite digital tool for education, your best friend in your teaching? Don't press the return button. Okay, I'm going to count down and then I want to see a chat fall. It's like a waterfall, but it's a chat fall. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Way, Kahoot, Socrative, Moodle, Padlet, Google Meet, Moodle, Keynote, Zoom, way. The chat goes wild. You see what I mean? Of course, with the vast number of people answering here, it gets pretty crazy. I just wanted to see what would happen. I've never done a chat fall like this with so many people, but it's dead simple. It's low tech. And one advantage is even the quiet people will answer you. You'll get an answer from everyone this way. And you don't get that if you ask them just to say in the chat and they do it immediately, because then only the noisy people will contribute and the others will think there's no point in me saying the same thing. Look, they're still coming. Back to presentation time. Use the whiteboard. There's a whiteboard in Zoom, in Teams, in Google Meet, in most of the tools. You can do a lot of creative stuff on the whiteboard. I could show you, but there isn't really time to do more practical examples. But the whiteboard can be a great way of getting involvement. There are the polls that we've used and external tools for polling, like the ones you know very well. You can increase engagement through recorded video. You know, before you have a meeting, you can give input, you know, the flipped classroom, basically. You record some inspiring, some video that you put out and let them watch before they come to the meeting so that they can then focus on discussion in the meeting. You can outline the aims of the aims of the meeting and the expectations, what you're expecting from this. Maybe about 10 minutes is a good time. A lot of surveys a lot of studies of online courses have shown that the optimum time for videos is 10 minutes. I would say it's not quite as simple as that. It depends on engagement. Many of us can sit spellbound to a good lecture that is an hour long. If it is really engaging, you can get that engagement. But if it's boring, they're bored after 2 minutes. You know, I think we can concentrate for longer, but there are demands on that. You can pause for thought. You can actually do things like, in the recording, you can ask a question and say, right, I want you to pause me. I want you to sit down with a pencil and paper, write down a few ideas about this question, and start me again when you've done that. So we create a bit of interaction, even if it's asynchronous. You can embed questions in your videos with using tools like Edpuzzle, but there are many other ways where they can't continue your video until they've answered a question. And of course, you can do screen recording, screencasting, where you share your screen and you work through examples. It could be in maths or it could be in whatever subject you're teaching. It's also a great way for recording feedback. Very, very powerful tool to do audio feedback or even video feedback. Recording how you go through the student's assignment, marking the interesting bits and just talking. And if you think that sounds like it takes a lot of time, I think it's quicker to do that than sitting writing all these comments. That takes longer for me anyway. And they can play it back. And it's like you're sitting beside them. I dare to ask, are there any interesting questions come up that you can tell me?
There is a question about Zoom fatigue.
Yeah.
That is claimed to be professional disease due to the excessive time spent on web meetings. Do you want to address this one now, or maybe we should like to till the end?
Just a little bit. Yes, it is a problem. As I said, we have it because it's so easy to organize all these Zoom meetings or Teams meetings, whatever you use. We do it. And it almost becomes like emails. You know, it became easy with emails to reply to everyone for everything you do, or invite, you know, you can invite everyone to meetings. And so you don't want to leave anyone out. We need to think more about who needs to be in this meeting and how long do we really need to be in the meeting. We also need to be careful not to stack these meetings one after the other, and to be able to say, no, I've got a meeting till 10 o'clock. I don't want another meeting starting at 10. Let's try and start it at 10:15. You've got to pace your time. And I saw a nice article recently with a question that, could your Zoom meeting have been replaced by email? Which is a good question, because sometimes we gather people for meetings and all it is one-way communication. You could have sent a mail, quite honestly. Did you really need to meet? And I think we're overdosing on these meetings. But it's not easy. We're not always in charge. Talking about e-meetings, you could probably, if I gave you a little, you could probably write down these in advance. But you know, what are your common e-meeting problems? I think I've probably got the same list as you. Let's see if we think the same way. Number one, bandwidth. Yes. If somebody can't be heard, if their video has stuck or their voice quality is terrible, it's bandwidth. It's nearly always because of Wi-Fi and a lack of capacity. If you've got a wired connection, use it. Wi-Fi can be rather unstable, not always, but it can be. If you've got a wire to stick into your computer, do it. It does make a big difference. It's much more stable. Using a good headset is another of the normal headaches. Your inbuilt microphone in your computer is often not very good. Of course, some are wonderful, but some are not wonderful. A desktop microphone is what I'm using, and they can be very, very effective. The big problem with a microphone in your computer is if you start writing on the keyboard with the microphone on, it sounds like the elephant is dancing. Check your video and audio settings before you go into a meeting. Make sure they're working. Your computer doesn't always know that you've put a headset in. Check that it is there and the computer knows it. Get your camera angle right. Speak into the camera so that you look people in the eye. Try to avoid cameras that go looking up your nose or looking down on you or from the side, and try to get the light in front, not behind you. Close other programs, especially if you're in a Zoom meeting, but you've been using Skype. Just close Skype because it might be hogging your camera. You can do a lot of bandwidth. You can do a lot of teaching with low bandwidth. A lot of our students don't always have high bandwidth connections. Some of them may be using a mobile with limited amount of bandwidth per month. Some of them have got a bad Wi-Fi connection. They can't always participate in our glossy Zoom meetings. What can you do instead? There's a lot to be said for having live chat, just a chat session. There's a little tool called Tokyo, or so tlk.io, and you can set up a live chat. It looks like Twitter, but it isn't. You can set it up in 10 seconds. You get a link that you give to the class. They log in. They can call themselves anything they want. They can be anonymous, but they create their little temporary account and they can chat. And that chat session can go on. You can have that chat for 1 hour as a question and answers chat session with students, very low bandwidth. And with this tool, if you don't save it, the chat disappears up in smoke, I think, within an hour or two afterwards. So it's not saved anywhere, unless you do it yourself. There are lots of messaging services. People use things like WhatsApp and so on, but more and more are looking at messaging services that don't track you, that are not owned by Facebook, etc. Delta Chat and Signal are two very common ones at the moment that claim anyway to be fairly secure, and they don't track you. We can do a lot of asynchronous interaction on low bandwidth. We could use more audio, try podcasting. It's much easier for students to listen to that than full HD video. Try asynchronous video and audio and text discussions. Flipgrid is rather good for that, using the mobile. I ask a question, record it on my mobile, post it on Flipgrid, give the code to my students. They go in and they record their answers, and it becomes a video discussion thread. Try to offer alternatives if you can. If you make a video and you've made a text, a manuscript, offer that manuscript as a downloadable text file. So if they can't see your video, they can read your manuscript. It's a simple thing, but it can make a big difference for people with various handicaps. And again, offer all your course material for offline access so that they can download it now, and then when they're offline, they can still access it. Breakout groups are probably the most famous of all the ways of getting more activity in your class. I love them. They're the way of letting everybody get a voice. But there is a problem that they can be very rewarding, but they can also be embarrassing. Everyone just sitting looking at each other and going, or can you hear me? Hello, hello, anyone there? Let them practice first with a trivial task before you give them real group work. Let them get into that group and work out who they are and get their connections working. And then later in the session, you can put them in the same groups. That's important because they've already met each other. Now they can focus on a task. So build in that time for socializing. Give them a clear task and explain why it's good to do this. What is the point of this? Because we often give people busy work. We get them into groups for just because we think they should work in groups. The students really deserve to know, why is this group activity important at all? And follow it up afterwards. Make sure that that group discussion leads to something meaningful and that others can see what they have been doing. You can do that using a lot of collaborative notes, getting them to write their notes in the same platform, and then everyone can see the results afterwards. Collaborative documents, storyboards, and even simple whiteboards. There are external whiteboards. Whiteboard.fi is a Finnish application that's used a lot in schools especially. And it's a wonderful, just a space where you can just throw up ideas like in the picture, but digitally. How about a silent meeting? Do we need to speak all the time? I don't think so. I think we can do an awful lot, and it's very powerful to be connected but not talking. You might think that's mad. I'll show you, or I'll tell you. I won't be able to demonstrate, but I can go through the procedure. You take a document. It could be a short article, a scenario, a case study, a problem. It shouldn't be more than a couple of pages of text. Put it on a platform that you can share and that allows comments. Give the whole class or your colleagues, give them access to that at the beginning of the meeting. They will all go into the platform and look at the shared document, and you say, I want you to all read that document, and I want you to comment on anything that is unclear, ask questions of something you don't understand, or reflections. But I want you all to go through this and comment wherever you see something that's worth commenting. So what happens then is the meeting goes all very quiet. You say, put off your cameras, put off your microphones, let's focus. Now we are together, but we are together in the document. And when everyone's looking in the document, for example, in Google Drive, you see all these cursors going all over the screen. You can see your colleagues actually moving around, and you can see comments coming up in real time, and you can click and reply to the comment. And so we have maybe 20 minutes or more of intense collaboration with no noise. It's quite an experience to do it. The teacher during this time is reading these comments and looking at key themes for the oral discussion, which comes afterwards. And then at the end of this time, the teacher will bring everyone back, microphones on, cameras on. Now I have identified from your comments 3 key questions to discuss. So let's go through them now, and I want to hear your ideas. That way we have focused, we have collaborated, and everybody has had can say something, much more than if we had the discussion from the beginning. Yes, it's a bombardment, isn't it? I will be taking 1 or 2 questions at the end, but I'm talking to a silence at the moment. It's very silent. Hope you're still around. Hybrid teaching. This is what we tried in the autumn when we tried to go back to campus, many of us. the problem of combining on-site students with online students. And the problem with this is the fly on the wall syndrome. You can do this quite well if you're lecturing, because you have a camera focused on the teacher and you can send your slides like I'm doing at the moment. And everyone in the room can see them and everyone online can see them. That's fine. But when we're going to get discussion and interaction, then it gets complicated. And then it's very easy that the students online feel like flies on the wall, watching the teacher having a good time with the people in the class. To avoid this, you need quite a bit of classroom equipment, and many universities and schools are installing Zoom rooms, or they can be called various things, that are equipped to make sure that everyone sees and hears everyone all the time. That means multiple microphones so that every person in the room can be heard if they have a question. You need maybe a couple of cameras so that the people online can see the group in the class, they can see the teacher, and they can see the shared material, the slideshow or whatever. And in the room, you need multiple screens because we need to be able to see the material we're working with. We need to be able to see the people online, and they need to be visible. We need to look at them and they need to look at us. And the teacher needs eye contact with all of them. That can be done, but there are not many classrooms, even at my university, and we have very modern facilities, but we don't have many classrooms that can do this. And the question is, how do you organize group work? You can, again, it demands planning. Maybe you need some technical assistance to be able to do this, because this sort of setup is very demanding. The teacher needs to be very good at multitasking, if anyone can be, and it's very stressful. If you have a colleague who's helping you with the cameras and stuff, it can help, but we don't always have that luxury. So I think hybrid teaching is very, very challenging and does need a good technical solution, and we don't have that in every classroom. So afterwards, we're trying to build a digital campus, because if you think of it, where do all of our students and all of our staff, what do they have in common? It's the digital campus, not the physical. My university has 2 campuses in 2 towns about 100 kilometers apart. So, you know, some students are on one campus and never go to the other. The only space we all have in common and where we can all meet is the digital space. And what does that look like? Sadly, our learning management systems are very much based on classes. So you only see people in your class. You can't bump into somebody there. You can't bump into people from the year above or the year below or another faculty. We need to bridge the campus and distance students. We need to bring people together. We need to build a digital campus that is social, collaborative, and multimedia. I don't know if any university has achieved this yet. There are some going in that direction, but we don't have social spaces online. And we need to make this digital campus sticky. It needs to be a place where you want to be, where the students, they can't leave it. It's so good. It's so much fun. You can meet so many people there. How sticky is your digital campus? So rounding off, the challenges for the post-COVID time is developing these hybrid spaces. How do we build these digital spaces that will link the distance students with the on-site campus students? That's a challenge. Building this digital campus that is social, that is stimulating, that is a place you want to be. And why do we have our campuses? If we can do so much online, what are the benefits of being on campus? Not everyone can be there. Not everyone can afford to be there or has time to be there. But if you are there, it has to be more than a place you go to listen to a lecture. It's got to be unmissable. And I think we have to begin to address this question of justifying this. What are the unique selling points of our campus environment? Why must you really be here? Digital is one way of accessing our education, but the campus has certain advantages. And I think we have to redefine that a little bit. The roads ahead, not just for education, but for the whole of society, when we think of the climate crisis and other things, we could go back to normal as if nothing had happened. COVID is over, yippee, let's just keep doing what we did before. Don't think that's terribly clever, but it's not unlikely. We can make minor adjustments to the way we work. We can do things a little bit more digitally, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Not sure if it'll make a difference. Or we can make radical changes. I think it's maybe time for radical change. We need to rethink a lot of our activities. Of course, we need to meet in person. Of course, we can't work digitally all the time. That's not the point. But I think we really need to make some radical changes in the way forward. My digital footprints are pretty easy to find. I blog on all this sort of stuff. My university profile and publications are there. You can have a look on Twitter and see if I'm worth following or not, but I only put out stuff on work and links to articles and news in my field. I'm not interested in celebrities and things like that. And I will stop sharing and get back to what's been going on.
Thank you, Alastair. That was very informative. We all enjoyed it a lot. We can read the comments. This was a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. And we've got some time for questions. So I can, if I can, the one from Rania. She says, "Are you for recording sort of theoretical lectures and uploading them at the allocated time of the lecture? So this one-way communication in form of recorded theoretical lectures. Are you for it?"
Oh, I'm not for or against anything really. I mean, it depends. It depends what they're used for. I think we shouldn't rely too much on recorded stuff. It gets rather tiresome. And we also have to think about concentration times. Although I have just been talking for 45 minutes or so, you don't want to listen to too many of these long presentations. I would rather say if you're going to record stuff, give them a sequence of short recordings, 10 minutes or so, with one major point per 10 minutes, and give them some activities around that than just pumping out a regular 50-minute lecture in one go, because people tend to drop off. I don't think you should record everything. I don't think it's meaningful. Some things have to be live. Some things have to be there, here and now. There's nothing wrong with that. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's one more question, if we may. How do you deal with unreactive students? That's the question from Pierre, which often turn off the group dynamics into whole unreactive classes despite all your efforts. Do you have any tricks for that? You've mentioned this silent classes, which we like a lot, but any other tricks?
Yeah, I think as I said, there's a lot of things that you can. There are tactics you can use to try and get the silent ones involved. I mean, if there's somebody who is trying to sort of to create a negative feeling, that's a counselling issue. But I mean, for the silent people, give them different ways of expressing their opinions. Many of them need more time to reflect, so they're not going to say anything live. They don't dare, they don't feel comfortable with that. Let them do it in the chat. Give them a place to. There should always be a digital space after your class where the discussion continues. because many people want to reflect for a few hours before they say anything. And I think actually you can get a better discussion online asynchronously, because then those reflective ideas will come up that don't come up in the classroom. Because in the classroom, all you get are spontaneous ideas that are often not thought through properly. So I think giving them spaces where they can contribute, but in their own time and in their own way, can get them. I've got a link. I was involved in a project a few years ago, and we got a guide called, oh dear, hold on. It's a guide called Silent Learners, a guide. And in the chat, there it is. And you can download it. It's just a PDF form, but it's got some ideas of how you can get the silent learners involved in your classes. So that's another little tip there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And if I can see, there are so many expressions of thankfulness. So it seems that the participants enjoyed it a lot. Benjamin in the chat mentioned that nobody has mentioned how many participants were in your session. So it was more, I monitored it, and it was more than 500 all the time throughout the session. And it's so thank you very much, Alastair, for all this very useful, informative presentation. And I invite everybody to 15 minutes break time now. Thank you, Alastair, once again.